Start by scalding milk. Scalding the milk denatures the whey proteins. This makes the milk a better food for the yeast, which means faster proofing, larger volume, and a fluffier bread. It also makes for a smoother dough with better moisture retention. To do that, you need to bring it just to a boil and then pull it off the heat. Then set your milk aside and let it cool down for a while. Zero the scale out and add salt. Then zero the scale out again and add your sugar. Zeroing the scale out each time you add a new ingredient, add the yeast next. We always used rapid rise yeast in the bakery to save time. It's the same as regular yeast, except there are more live organisms per gram, so it rises more quickly and you don't have to proof it. Next comes your shortening. Butter flavored is even better, but real butter has too much moisture content. Next, we add in 1 egg and 1 yolk. As always, we break the eggs against a flat surface so we don't push accidentally any shell into the egg. Break it into a glass dish and examine it for impurities, eggshells, or blood spots before you add it to your mixture. Separate 1 white from the yolk by cracking it into your hands and letting the white run through your fingers into the glass dish. Then pour the warm milk in, which by this time should no longer be scalding hot, and stir the whole thing up just enough until you can't see any more dry stuff stuck to the bottom before you put it on the mixer. Put it in the mixer on medium speed for 2 minutes to blend all the ingredients together. Then stop the mixer and let the dough rest for 10 minutes while the yeast activates. After a 10-minute rest is over, turn the mixer back on and knead for an additional 15 minutes on medium-slow speed. The dough will be much smoother after a 10-minute rest. Scrape the sides of the bowl occasionally as it mixes. It should feel tacky, but not stick to the sides of the bowl, the spatula, or your fingers. If it's too sticky, you can add some additional flour, but make sure to only add it 1 teaspoon at a time. Knead for 15 minutes or until it starts to climb up the dough hook and no longer sticks to anything. You should be able to pinch it and easily stretch it very thin without tearing when it's done kneading. Flour the cutting board. Scrape the dough out onto it and ball the dough into a ball. Put the ball into your oiled bowl and flip the ball once so a little oil coats the top of the ball. Then place the bowl in a warm, moist place for 45 minutes or until the ball is doubled in size. While it's rising, spray your angel food cake pan or oil it. Also while it's rising, I'm going to toast the walnuts. I'm toasting plenty of them here so that I'll have some for next time. Be very careful when toasting the walnuts that they don't burn. Check them every few minutes because they burn very quickly. In 8 to 10 minutes they're done. 2 minutes later, some are burnt, and using any burnt walnut spreads the burnt flavor throughout your dish. Better underdone than burnt. Once they're done and cooled, put them in a plastic bag and use a mallet, roller, or some hard object to crush them. You don't want to turn them into powder, just crush them into small pieces. There's enough here to make several coffee cakes or to add to yogurt or another dish. You want to get everything set up for coating the balls of dough ahead of time. So melt a bowl of butter and make your cinnamon sugar. I also like to make extra cinnamon sugar and keep it around the kitchen for things like cinnamon toast or other coffee cakes. Add some of the walnuts to the cinnamon sugar, then stir it up well and your streusel will be ready. One very important and secret preparation is to soak the raisins in water for at least 10 minutes, making them very soft and plump in this special cake. For a real treat, add a little rum to the water, but drain them in a strainer before adding them later. Now once the dough is risen, you're ready to assemble your cake. Dump the dough out of the rising bowl and out onto a floured board. Punch it down and work it until all the air bubbles are out of it. Using a scale, cut a 40-gram piece of dough off and make a ball out of it to use as a guide. Then cut the remaining dough in pieces and roll all those pieces into strands about the thickness of your guide ball. Then chop the strands into pieces about the size of your guide ball and roll all the pieces into balls. You're going to want to do all this fairly quickly so the dough doesn't rise again before you put it in the pan. And then we're finally ready to actually start assembling the cake. I find it easier to put several balls in the butter at a time. Use one hand for the butter and one hand for the streusel, or you'll find streusel sticking to both your hands. Pick a ball up out of the butter with one hand and pick up some streusel with the other hand. Put the ball into the streusel bowl and dust the top of it with the streusel from your other hand. Don't pack the balls too tightly. Remember, they're going to expand to double their size, so they need some room. Make 2 to 3 layers of balls, sprinkling some of the raisins around after each layer. After the last layer, press some raisins into the crevices. Lastly, drizzle any leftover butter over the entire cake. The butter will run through the balls and further enrich everything. Now it's ready to go in to rise until it's doubled in size. At this stage it rises quickly, usually 30 to 45 minutes. Once it's risen to the top of the pan, put it onto a larger pan, so if anything spills over, it doesn't make a mess in the oven. And then it's off to bake. You might be able to use a bundt pan if it's extremely well greased, but it must be a pan with a hole in the middle for the balls to cook properly. An angel food cake pan springs apart and releases the cake easily. Place a piece of foil down or have another pan ready to turn the cake over onto when it comes out. It needs to be turned upside down and the pan removed immediately after it comes out of the oven while it's still hot so it doesn't stick and the butter on the bottom runs back through the cake.